because
Right.
these crafts are flying in our airspace with impunity. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know how to track them or stop them. They can fly around with complete impunity.
Mhm.
So they are suggesting to the public, yeah, we should look at it as a threat. So
Mhm.
all are saying the same kind of narrative. Okay, these are UFOs, and this could be a threat. Who benefits from that?
Without further ado, let's get right into it. First of all, let me start by saying the way I normally start all of my latest podcasts by saying thank you
Thank
for
you.
you've agreed. Have you ever recorded any episodes of a podcast or anything like that before?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, me and my friend were trying to record a similar kind of setup.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Okay, interesting.
we will kind of let it sit for a while. We haven't published it anywhere. We are just
Yeah.
seeing what to do with it.
Yeah, it's interesting how almost overwhelmingly popular the podcast has become, right? In this,
Yeah, I've been seeing.
yeah. Have you listened to anything of similar kind? Perhaps some sort of paranormal podcast
Uh,
on that topic?
yes. There's this podcast now, that UFO podcast, and Joe Rogan.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Everybody who
Some of
doesn't
these.
know that motherfucker.
Yeah. Some of the
To be honest, so I was going to get into it, and it's interesting.
and
It's nice
one
that
more,
you.
that Coast to Coast AM. And that is one popular one out there for
Okay.
paranormal news.
Okay, so the latest one, the second one, is exclusively on paranormal topic, I imagine,
Okay.
right? Honestly, the source of motivation behind me doing this exact episode and why I initially decided to post that message inviting people to talk exactly about paranormal was this latest appearance of James Fox on Joe Rogan. Have you listened to this one?
I just heard the Reddit was kind of going
Listen,
mad
man, you
about
gotta
it.
get into it.
I
You've
was
got to
plan.
get
I
into it.
had put it in my thing to like listen to it while I go
Yeah.
to drive or something.
Have you heard about James Fox before?
Yes. He's a filmmaker.
Really?
Yeah, he
Interesting,
has
because he
made
appears to
some
be a big,
documentaries about
right?
the UFO phenomena.
So I had previously, and once again, certainly due to Joe Rogan, about Jeremy Corbell. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard of
I have
the
heard.
guy.
Yes.
Have you seen any of his documentaries?
James Fox.
No, Jeremy Corbell.
Jeremy Corbell, the one with the Bob Lazar one.
That one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you seen any of his documentaries?
I've seen the Bob Lazar one,
Yeah.
the one
Okay.
he interviewed and gave some data on Bob Lazar. I'm kind of skeptical about it, but
Yeah, you do.
he's kind of he has been saying the same story for a long time, and
Right.
some of the things he said has kind of came true. I'm
Yeah.
still waiting what goes on with him. Like I'm not certain,
Uh-huh.
is he telling the truth, or is he making this up? But I
Mhm.
do feel that if we give it enough time, one day we'll find out what is going on behind the Bob Lazar
Well,
thing.
lots of time has already passed, hasn't it?
Yes.
Right.
It's. I
How
think
long
he
has
came
this
out.
story been on?
He came out in 1989 in that news as
Hmm.
Dennis. First appeared with this. What's his name? The person who got him to the TV show. That
Oh, Larry King? Could that have been him? No?
no. The one who was who also came to the.
To
Wait.
Rogan? Jeremy Corbell?
No.
No, not
Let
that.
me check it out.
I am embarrassed to admit that I have not seen the original documentary on Bob Lazar. People say it's quite compelling. So you see
The
this thing
original
that
interviews are kind of very mind blowing. The way he describes the
really.
thing for the
So
first time.
you're saying that Bob came out 1989,
89. Yes.
and when did that story take place? When he was involved in that project?
And I
Mid
think it was
80s.
just during the 1980s itself that he kind of got into trouble because he realized that the program was trying to kick him out because the
Mm-hmm.
program, they realized that his wife was cheating on him, so they thought
Mm-hmm.
this guy is not liable enough, and there is uncertainty in his life, so he
Mm-hmm.
might not be the perfect contender to run a program like a very top
Mm-hmm.
secret program.
Which I must confess, sounds a little bit shady. Like, I mean, it doesn't because, okay, you've just discovered one of your important, reliable coworker has been cheated on. Well, should you fire him after that? Right? So yeah, I don't know. So one thing that Rogan keeps pointing out to, complementary to in address to Bob Lazar, is that his story has stayed consistent. And do you think that speaks complementary of Bob, or do you think that, let's imagine, I've decided to come up with the most outrageous, outstanding bullshit in the world? I think that story would stay quite consistent, right? Because it's like, I think people who don't lie, their story might vary, don't you think? So I
He
think the
in
reason, yeah,
that, I guess you're referring to that Joe Rogan podcast where Bob
yeah,
Lazar came out and he was
right,
saying that story. Yeah, that interview in particular seemed a little weird. The way Bob Lazar was
really.
telling some stories about it. But
Well,
when you go
he,
back to the original interviews in the TV shows back in the 1989 when he came out, those ones
mm,
seem very credible. The way
hmm,
he talked back
hmm,
then. Now it
uh huh,
feels a little
So you think
shady.
it might have been just the time, and he's getting older? You think that could have played a part?
He said that on the podcast, but I'll agree that I'm not completely believing that Bob Lazar might be saying the truth, but it's
Yeah.
weird of some things he has said has came true. That's the only thing I feel like, okay, maybe he knows something, or maybe it's just good luck that he was able to connect these dots. He
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
described how the UFOs will fly in the 1989, and then
mm-hmm,
when the 2020 declassification happened of those three videos where the Navy
mm-hmm,
pilots kind of described the same kind of maneuvers and the same kind
mm-hmm,
of trajectory Bob Lazar was explaining back in the 1989. That felt weird for me. And the
mm-hmm,
element 115 thing that he could have predicted, because it was in the 1960s that these elements were talked about, the heavy element that he mentioned,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
it was discovered in 2013, I guess, by some Russian scientists, that okay, this heavy element exists but not in a
mm-hmm,
stable form. He was
mm-hmm,
talking that this fuel source called element 115 was used in this craft, and it was a stable version of that element, and that kind of came true. But I'm still thinking like it could be a really good coincidence that he predicted that and it came out to be true.
He could have predicted that, certainly. And do you, for just a fracture of a second, accept that this whole situation could have been just real for him, but he could have been just obnoxiously used by somebody? Because that's what
I
they
do
refer
feel,
to.
I feel that
Yeah.
this whole UFO phenomena could be a big misinformation agenda. They,
Purposeful, right?
I think the phenomena might be also happening and it is being taken advantage of at the same time, that the
Uh-huh.
phenomena is actually going on and a lot of people are witnessing it all around the world, and certain entities like the US government and the military are using that as a misinformation campaign to play people into their game of let's militarize for some another new threat. Like they are
Oh.
pushing this narrative that the UFO phenomena might be a threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
So,
the recent news revelation and the congressional hearings that have been happening recently is
uh-huh.
suggesting that they're looking at this like a national security threat. They're not
Uh-huh.
looking at it like a scientific investigation should look at it
Mm-hmm.
like let's at
So
least.
you're saying that eventual purpose would be to better financially equip military entities, right? With the pretext that it might pose a threat and therefore we need more budget. Is that what you're saying?
I feel that because if you look at how the US military has been operating in the history, not just in the UFO topic, but
Mm-hmm.
all the wars they have played out, it kind of felt like they played this agenda
Mm-hmm.
to the public and kind of persuaded the public, okay, fund us, we need to protect the American nation, protect its people by creating this false flag events.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that some certain events that have taken place on the American soil might be all a false propaganda thing, and
Mm-hmm.
they are using this UFO subject kind of like that because they are not coming out with the data. They are giving us only little chunks of
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
trying to
that
say,
sounds and seems
huh.
very
And
weird,
then they are
right?
saying that okay, this might be a threat. They are giving us certain data and telling it's a threat. Give us all the
Who
data.
Right? Who was that commander who had also been on Rogan some time back? I think
The
David
David Fravor, the guy who was
Fravor.
flying the
Yeah,
jet fighters. Yes.
Do you think that guy being in the position that he is, which is pretty respected, right? And do you think he could have also been used by somebody who's of a higher power, I mean, higher position than him? Or do you think he knows what's going on? Do you think he purposely plays on the side of the government?
There could be a chance of that happening because the people David Fravor is involved with are kind of feeling like like almost like scripted. If you
Mm,
look at how Christopher Mellon and the Luis Elizondo people, the ones who like kind of force the government to get all the data, they
mm,
seem like they're playing a role. They're
mm,
trying to convey the public, okay, this topic is serious. This topic is
mm,
not to be laughed about,
mm,
but they're also pushing that same threat narrative that at least we should look at it like a threat, figure it out,
mm,
because these
mm,
crafts are flying in our airspace with impunity. We don't know how
mm,
where they're coming from. We don't know how to track them or stop them. They can fly around with complete impunity. So
mm,
they're suggesting to the public, yeah, we should look at it as a threat. So all are
mm,
saying the same kind of narrative. Okay, these are UFOs, and this could be a threat. Who benefits from that?
mm,
You have you heard about that lecture that Eisenhower said before he came out of office, that there's a shadow government with its own navy, with its
mm,
own air force, trying to play its narratives out. Like, so we have to be careful that these entities do not get too powerful, that we might
mm.
lose a touch of what is truth or what is false.
Do you think presidents of countries are completely aware, or do you think even those figures might
I,
not be entirely?
I think some of the presidents were cued into this, like they
Mm,
knew about this, they were told about
mm,
this, but some of the presidents didn't have any clue. They were not given this data. They are not. They didn't confirm these presidents key. Okay, there might this phenomena is real and there's data and
mm,
we have recovered things and all. I think few presidents are knowing. I think the Bush era people fairly knew it. I guess they played a key role in covering this up, and
mm,
before also.
mm. Now, regarding what happened in Brazil in that documentary made by James Fox, do you accept that there literally could have been a real ET? And supposedly there were a couple of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but after this unidentified object crashed, were there a couple of bodies discovered on a place that actually stank a lot? Because according to James Fox, who interviewed those people, they reported just horrible smell. Was there one entity or a couple in that object discovered?
I haven't seen the documentary,
Oh, you haven't.
that
Yeah.
one. I've seen the
Mm-hmm.
one with the aerial school encounter where a lot of kids,
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten kids, witnessed a UFO landing in the playground, and they came in contact with this 4 foot tall beings with big
Mm-hmm.
eyes and big
Mm-hmm.
hair. The weird
Mm-hmm.
thing about that event was this little kids are saying, all of them are saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are drawing the same thing, and a famous psychologist from some big university came to study them. He also was convinced that these kids had a real encounter, that
Mm-hmm.
what they were saying was not just hallucinating or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
It would have been hard to explain some sort of common hallucination of that kind, right? It's not
Yeah.
observed by only one person.
So the event I was talking about was Aerial School UFO event. It happened in 16th September of 1994 in
Mm.
Rua, Zimbabwe, where 69 people saw this craft land near their school playground, and kids and
And
teachers both witnessed it. Mostly the kids
and
saw the beings up front.
where was it?
Rua, Zimbabwe,
Oh, wow. In the 90s, you said, right?
in 1994.
94. And was there one entity that supposedly came
They,
out, or a few?
in the drawings that the kids made, they showed this craft with circular windows, and there were three
Mm.
beings that they came
Mm.
close to, and these kids explained how they felt, how what they were wearing they also
Mhm.
described that this beings had a really tight fitting silver kind of suit on top of them.
Sort of classical description, right, of a
They had
conventionally
very
looking
clear
alien.
description of what they saw.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
the weird thing.
Yeah, problem is that it's kids, right? Those can invent some shit up and then it spreads, but it does raises a lot of questions, undeniably. In the moment of contact, this latest documentary by James Fox, um, I hope, and I probably will not spread no spoilers considering the small audience that I've got on my channel. People haven't even probably heard about that, but there were supposedly a couple of creatures discovered, and one of them was injured. And one thing that I remember from that podcast that stands out is that there was a terrible smell emanated from those creatures. And the people who happened to be there, they claimed to understand the creature telepathically. And the creature was supposedly not complaining, but yeah, the creature was badly damaged, injured, and it was even later taken into a hospital in the nearby area. And an event of that kind was always suppressed, and that's the craziest thing. So, like, if it was taken to the hospital, there must have been drivers, right? There must have been doctors, and there were doctors. And yeah, I think I've got to watch that documentary. I just have to watch that documentary.
You mentioned telepathic communication. These kids
Yeah.
also told a similar story where these beings were talking to them
Mm,
telepathically, and they conveyed this message to the kids. Most of the kids were saying that they are trying to convey that the technology we are going through this technology revolution, that it is bad
mm,
for the planet.
and they meant us, right?
Yes, like
That
the
us
technologies that we
humanity,
are
we are
making
going.
is kind of killing the planet, then you should slow down with it. That's what these beings were
Which,
communicating with the
yeah,
kids.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what you would probably want to say if you wanted to make a story up, right? Like, it's really unlikely that the aliens have just abruptly landed on a in a country and they
Have
said,
you
well, like,
heard about the guy Jacques Vallée?
oh, who's that?
Jacques Vallée is known as the person who revolutionized the topic of UFOs. If you go
Hmm.
do a little research on this guy, he's saying this phenomena might not be something that is the conventional explanation that these aliens are coming from some another planet. He's saying that there's some kind of conscious connection to this thing, that
Hmm.
it could be some kind of a control mechanism that
Hmm.
is playing out on the human civilization, that some kind of entities that not might not be physical at all, might not be interacting with us
Hmm.
the way we interact with things,
Hmm.
and they are trying to convey some kind of information to us.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what
Hmm.
he's suggesting. He did research on this and went back to like years of what this UFO topic has been shown across the earth, like what kind of UFOs people were witnessing before this 1900s and before before the timeline of human beings. And it always seems like this phenomena has stayed the same, but it changed its face,
Hmm.
because in the 1600s people were seeing flying
Hmm.
sail ships in the sky, and then they started seeing airships, and now we are seeing metallic discs, tic
Hmm.
tacs and orbs and stuff. It seems like these things are kind to portray that what's just ahead of us, like just in the
Hmm.
future, what
Hmm.
we will be capable of. It's
Hmm.
trying to convey that okay, one day you'll be able to do this, but we are trying to show you like this is how it's gonna look like. Who know? Like that's what this guy Jacques Vallée is trying to
Hmm.
portray. There's this film, Third Encounters of the Third Kind.
Hmm.
You heard of? There was this
Hmm.
scientist in
Sure.
it that
Hmm.
was kind of modeled after this guy Jacques Vallée.
Mm. Ah, okay, okay, yeah, yeah. That movie was good. It was certainly fairly creepy, but it was good. Yeah, wasn't there? Could that guy that you've just described coined the term third, the close contacts of the third kind?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah. That's the guy.
yeah,
Yeah,
there was
he categorized the different kind of encounters you can have with these beings, like the first kind, the second kind, third kind, fourth kind, and the fifth kind.
So, what do you make out of that story? You may have heard it was also on Rogan. Another guy came out. It happened a couple of years ago. He came out on Rogan. This elderly person who said that he claimed to have been abducted by aliens and to have spent some time. What was his name? You
Yeah,
know who I'm talking
yeah,
about,
yeah,
right?
yeah. He was
Matt.
he was a woodcutter that went into
Yes, he was out in some
a
work.
group of workers went into this
Uh huh.
forest, and
Uh
then
huh.
a beam of light shooted
So,
out,
how
and
long does he claim to have been abducted for? A couple of days, isn't it?
yeah, he was missing for a few days, and then he
Couple of
popped
days.
out somewhere far away from where he was picked up.
What do you make out of that story? Like, I know we could speculate, we could play yes or no, but if you had to bet your money at a gunpoint, let's say, relatively speaking, right? Do you buy it or not?
I think something happened with him, but I don't think what he's saying might be true.
But he certainly believes it might be, it is true. So, yeah, so, as a lot of people say, it's fair to believe that they believe, right?
Yeah, that guy might be completely believing that what happened to him, but might not have happened the same way he's portraying it to be.
And also the think about memory, how it transforms him
Huh.
over
I
time.
do feel that there's something mysterious that happened with him that day, but the way he says it may not be true or might be true, but we won't know ever, man. That's the
And
weird
just
thing about
like
this phenomenon.
in case with Bob Lazar, his story has been pretty consistent over all those years since it happened, right? I don't think he's changed too much. And there was also a film based on that story. I don't remember the name of the film. Yeah. So we are a little bit short of time, so it's going to be a fairly mini episode, if I may call it that way. Let's get into your story because that was the primary reason why I wanted to record it.
Okay.
So explain what happened to you.
So I live in a little island group near the Indian islands. It's called the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So I lived at a place called Rangat. The name is Rangat, Rangat, Rangat.
Mhm.
So I was back then I was in seventh grade. This was 2010. Every evening, I used to go with my friends to this little badminton court that was right next to the seashore. Okay, and there's something called jetties where all the boats will come and anchor themselves and unload their stuff and things. So I was near that area, and it was me and a total of four other people. So we were total five people, and we were playing badminton in this court. So it was two versus two. So one guy used to wait for the others to finish playing. So I was waiting that day. It was around 6:30 a.m. It was night. The time zone here at Andaman and Nicobar Islands, it's kind of early. By the time it's 5:45 p.m., the sun sets, and when it reaches 6:30 p.m., it's completely dark. So I came out of that badminton court and I instantly noticed that a few meters away, like 20, 30 meters away, on the ocean floor, there was this white orb that was glowing very bright. It didn't had any sound.
And how far away from you was that? Did you say?
20 to 30 meters away
Yeah,
from me.
that's pretty close.
Huh.
Yeah.
It was hovering just 4 5 meters above the ocean floor.
Wow.
Okay, and it was glowing white, but the surroundings were not getting lit by that light. It was glowing on itself, but the light that is getting emitted from it was not spreading around and hitting the ocean and the surroundings and lighting those things up. It just was glowing on
Was
its
it
own.
reflected in the water, you think?
It was not. Also, it's the reflection was also not there. That was what the
Wow.
weird part was, that that thing was glowing bright, but there was no reflections, there was no light that was being seen. When you turn on a bulb, you can see all the walls are lighting up now.
Uh-huh,
But that object was lit up like that bulb, but it was not lighting up the surroundings.
uh-huh.
What I noticed after a while, that it was only like 10 15 seconds into the encounter that a spotlight suddenly appeared. and it started moving around the ocean very slowly, like moving around slowly, and it just stopped. And I felt like it noticed that I was watching it. It just
Mhm.
stopped and it was silent. It was staying there. It was not moving in the air at all. The spotlight was moving. It stopped and I freaked out. I felt like that
Mhm.
thing suddenly noticed that I was there watching it. I got
Mm.
scared. I went into the badminton court and tried to call the
You said
people.
it was also emanating some sort of sound, right? Some kind of buzz
It,
was coming out of it.
a slight hum was there, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think my memory is a little fuzzy on that. I still feel that it was completely silent.
Mm.
It didn't
Mm.
have much noise because I was
Mm.
near the ocean. It had a lot of wind noise, the waves crashing.
Mhm.
So if it was humming, I might not have been able to figure out if it
How
was.
big in size was that object?
I guess 2 to 3 meters in diameter.
Wow. Okay.
It was a perfect
That's quite
sphere.
creepy, honestly. If I noticed something like that, yeah, I would
It
freak
was
out.
a perfect sphere. It was not dish shaped. It was a perfect little 2 3 meter big white orb that was glowing
Mhm.
like a little star. Man, it was.
Mm.
It almost seemed like it was so bright. The weird thing was that no reflections can be seen of that object on the
Right.
surroundings.
Yeah.
I after that I went
That's
and
the
I
weirdest, obviously. Like, you know what? The fact that no reflections were spotted speaks on its questionable nature, perhaps not physical nature. I feel like I understand where the term orb comes from compared to UFO, because UFO is a little bit more physical, it appears to me, right?
yeah there were have you seen the recent report from the AARO?
Mm-mm.
They compile the data of all the events that are officially captured by military equipment and all, and it
Mhm.
was in they made a pie chart. In that, it was saying that 52% of the sightings are of orbs, and only a
15?
50, and
Okay.
others were just disk shapes were only like 10 to 15% that people were seeing.
Uh-huh.
So I guess orbs might be some other phenomena kind of related with the same thing. Maybe, who knows? But I got scared when that
Mhm.
spotlight stopped moving, and I went into
Mhm.
the badminton court and I called out my friends. Ki, okay, I'm seeing something. Will you please come out and see? They went out. I went out, and when we all came out, there was no object there.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
disappeared.
Mhm.
It was not there. Like it never happened.
Have you heard anybody from your surroundings ever mentioning anything of that kind?
Yeah,
Has
yeah,
some,
yes.
uh,
After that event, I that event was the thing that triggered me to look into what it was, and
mhm,
that's how I got introduced to the field of UFOs and
mhm,
started studying the phenomena. And I
mhm,
started asking around because Andaman Islands is very, it's not that developed. There are not big
mhm,
cities. There are not
mhm,
much light pollution, and it's
mhm,
mostly surrounded by ocean. And a
mhm,
lot of fishermen and a lot of people who spend time near the oceans have said that they
mhm,
have seen this orb-like things,
mhm.
like bouncing around the horizon like this.
So you've talked personally with people who have
I,
presumably seen something similar, right?
yeah, I met with a scuba diver who works at this little island called Havelock, and he have been working there since 10 years, and he
Mhm.
said that he has seen this objects very regularly. Like every month,
Really?
you'll see distant orange orbs bouncing around the horizon.
Mhm. Hmm. So, and the description of those orbs tends to be the same most of the times, right?
The one I saw was stationary. It was just floating. It was just hovering in that same exact point in space. But the
Yeah.
ones the people have been saying here were
Mhm.
moving around and doing weird maneuvers that they haven't seen anything else doing the same thing. One of the guy I met was saying that they saw this ops just going slowly, and then it shoot up like that.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And normally, those descriptions, all of them say, all of them claim that those weird objects, they, or at least good parts of them, tend to go upwards like that, straight up, instead of going like
Yeah, that
forwards
that
and
trajectory.
sideways, going up like that.
These are fishermen that I've talked with who have no exposure to this topic.
Uh-huh.
that
Uh-huh.
are saying the same things that we have been reading on Reddit and other places, that
Yeah. Yeah.
these things have this weird hypersonic maneuvers and right angle turns and stuff.
So, in
That
your area, in your experience, when you initiate a conversation like that, does talking about that sort of thing tend to have some bad ring to it? Do people still
it
feel a bit,
in India particularly, the media hasn't covered this topic at all. They have not
really?
paying attention to what is going on with the United States, how they are coming out with data now, and I guess Australia and France are also taking this topic seriously, and they are also
Mhm.
releasing their own data. Uh, but Indian people in general are interested in talking about this once they learn that okay, other countries are taking this topic seriously now.
Mhm.
And in our culture also, there is something called the Vimanas. You might have heard of it. In our ancient Vedic text, people have described this vehicles that our gods were using,
Mhm. Mhm.
that had the same kind of maneuvers.
Mhm.
And the people I've met with, for a few minutes, they'll make fun of it again and nothing like that. But then when I start showing them the data on what is going on right now, they then
Mhm.
open up. Okay, I've been curious about this topic for a long time. I do
Mhm.
feel that we are not alone in this huge universe we live in.
One of the predicaments with discovering something like that currently seems like, with all this political turmoil and wars happening and our exposure to the internet and the way how it transforms our life, I've been thinking lately that even if it gets confirmed seriously, and even if an ET of cosmic origin gets revealed, I feel like it will make big news coverage for one day, and then we'll be off to our regular bullshit. Do you
I
think?
feel that would be
Yeah,
the scenario.
yeah, because it's like, yeah, well, okay, we know alone, amazing, right? Most transformative headlines ever, right? That puts upside down the whole humankind history completely. Not to mention the undeniable questions that religions will inevitably have, right? Once extraterrestrial civilization gets discovered, but then later we'll be like, okay, well, politics, or you know. So do you think now we just live in a world that it will make a huge sound for one day, and then next day we'll be off to our regular stuff?
I think it's in the hand of the people who are running the media and stuff. If they pick this topic in a serious matter, people will pay attention for a while. And if they keep doing it again and again, yeah, people will take it seriously. But the way I've noticed how the uh, current media situation is, that if they reveal something like this, people will just glance over it and forget about it
Mhm.
in a day. They are too worried about their work and their life that they have stopped worrying about things outside our bubble of existence. We won't much care about what is flying around in our sky until it
So
affects
according
our daily
right
life.
according to your research, and I've lately been a bit skeptical, admittedly, about the word research, because people tend to sort of misuse the word research, because
Yeah,
these
yeah,
days
I
what
can understand
research
that.
means, right, is just reading upon a couple of Google articles. And I guess that could be research, because you've got to talk to people, compare. If you're skeptical and analytical, that could be called a research. So nonetheless, according to your information which you've got over this years, what is the most conventional sort of standard explanation of these orbs? Because in case with UFO, we sort of assume that they come from another planet, most likely, right? And what about orbs? Do they differ in origins compared to UFO?
It could
Is
be.
there even,
I think
yeah?
there
What
there
sort of
will be
explanation?
many answers to this, but I could also I'll have this two-part answer to this.
Mhm.
It could be some kind of a surveillance thing.
Mm.
That there are some reports that some of these orbs can be ejected from a UFO and it will come out and then do its survey and go back to
Mm.
into the UFOs. There are some reports on that, but I am not that convinced that these are true. But
Mhm.
it would really seem like okay, it could be some kind of a surveillance thing, that it is really tiny. It doesn't need a pilot inside it or something like, or it could be some kind of a life form in itself.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
could not see, we think that everything should be like a car or a vehicle or a plane
Ran by
that people
somebody.
will sit in and something.
Mm.
These things could be living things on itself, like
I think
us.
some people have also speculated the same about UFOs, that those ships themselves are sort of independent organisms, right?
Yeah, they had this term for it. I don't remember. Yeah, but I feel like, yeah, it could be that there's a chance that it could be an interdimensional thing, that we hadn't really understand how our universe operates, how our reality is. We only can perceive a certain bandwidth of our reality. We cannot see the whole light spectrum. We cannot hear all the frequencies. So there could
Mhm.
be chances these things exist near to us, but we cannot perceive them, and they might be able to show up when they want us to see them. I feel like there's some that it is a very unconventional answer to this. We think it's nuts and bolts. It's coming from some far place. It is some kind of intelligence or technology that we are witnessing, but it could be completely something that we cannot even fathom. We cannot even imagine, because it's just too far ahead of what
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. One more thing is that it seems to me that we're definitely overlooking our oceans and seas. For some reason, people have always been inclined to look up when it comes to something, while we haven't even studied all those areas, right? And some of those TikToks have reportedly been coming from water, as far as I'm aware.
They call it the USOs, the
Mm,
unidentified submerged objects.
mm,
They have seen these
mm.
objects coming in and out of ocean sometimes, and
Yeah.
the
It
orbs.
just for some weird reasons to us, it sounds less fun to assume that those come from water, right? It's
For me,
endlessly
it's
more
even
fulfilling.
scary that
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I
it
think
could
so.
be even
Yeah, because
scarier
it
that
makes it
they have
that they're closer
already,
to us.
if they are coming from somewhere far away and they have set
Mhm.
up something in our oceans that they can hide into or stay and research there, or we might be in some kind. I have this weird theory. I told my friends that if the galaxy is filled with civilizations,
Yeah,
there might be some weird intergalactic tourism happening.
yeah, oh yeah,
There would be a giant database. Okay, this is planet Earth, and you can go visit it and observe the people there. They'll have all the data on us, so they don't have to interact with us. You can go research about ants. You don't have to communicate with
Mhm,
the ants. You
mhm,
personally
mhm.
won't go down and tell them the laws of physics to ant colony. If there's something very intelligent that is coming to visit us, they might not interact with us. They'll just observe our planet and just move on. And that's why we are seeing different kind of shapes. Maybe these are different kind of civilizations that are
It's kind
coming.
of fun to assume that some sort of galactical tourism might be happening, might be taking place.
It could be, man. There are trillions of stars out there. Who knows? There's a
Yeah, for
civilization
sure.
who have made this database, and you can just point to a destination, travel there, observe there, and we'll observe you like UFOs, and they'll just see us and
Yeah.
just move on to another destination.
Paid for one ride, right? Paid for two ways tickets. Yeah. Uh, well, Sam Harris, one of those internet intellectuals you might have heard, he spoke recently about something interesting that I would like to um, talk about. He said, well, he was speaking about that in the context of AI, but I extend this thought experiment onto extraterrestrials. And I think, you know, how sometimes when you drive your car, you fix a driveway or anything like that, you can accidentally kill good hundreds of ants. So do you accept that to those supposed highly advanced civilizations, we could be like ants? And do you for a second fear like they could damage us without even noticing? Because for them, it's totally outside of their realm of attention that we exist.
I feel like we as humans are interpreting this phenomena the way we would interpret other humans.
Hmm.
Like they
Hmm.
might be destructive like humans, they would be
Hmm.
war mongering like humans, but maybe they are so beyond that ideology. Like they are so evolved that they have left this concept of killing things and left this
Hmm. Hmm.
concept.
Hmm.
They might not even be existing in a physical format.
Hmm.
If they
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
advanced enough, they might be able to just disappear into thin air.
Hmm.
They might not. If they had the technology to do it, they might have already done it. But I feel like if you're advanced enough, you won't need us in anything. You don't need the resources or on planet Earth. You are capable enough to travel the galaxies and the stars, and anywhere you want to go, you can go. So you won't fuss over a little tiny blue dot that we are.
Have you ever personally challenged the assumption that our nuclear weapon could hold interest to them? Because that's the common thought. Everybody says, like Rogan, including, he said, like, well, look at us, we can explode ourselves in a minute, totally destroy. Have you ever thought that to aliens it's so irrelevant and pointless to even think whether we could blow ourselves up or not? Or do you think nuclear weapon is in fact of great interest, possibly, to them?
The I think in the same podcast I have heard them saying that they might be pointing out that nuclear weapons is dangerous to us.
Yeah.
Like in a lot of this encounters with UFOs where they came down into a nuclear bunker and turned off the missiles, kind of suggests that you human beings are not evolved enough to play with technologies like this that is very destructive to your own civilization. And if you are a neighbor, imagine you are in your home and your next door neighbor is making bombs in his garage.
Well, yeah, I understand, but just as you said seconds ago, this is us projecting human thinking, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I feel that they might be trying to point us out.
Beyond it.
They are just trying to tell it, be safe with it. Don't play with it.
Mm.
Eh,
And I've also been surprised to discover how many of those supposed sightings have happened around nuclear sites, right? In different countries. Like that was something that wasn't in my focus in my span of attention. Like, of course, like where else? Where else? Well, kind of everywhere, but most accurately around those nuclear stations, right? Interesting. Well, listen, I'm endlessly grateful that we've had this interesting conversation. We've done good 40 minutes. I'm a little bit late to my appointment. So, once again, thanks a lot. I wish you luck. If you ever decide to kick off your own podcast with a friend of yours about something similar, I'll be happy to subscribe. And in case if any of us faced with NET, I would like to wish both of us bravery. Right?
yeah, well, all the best. If it happens, it would be a life changing event. That's
If it
what we.
happens, we only have to pray that we survived, right? And then it would make a great story. That's how I treat my life. No matter how traumatic experience happens to me later, if my ass survives, I make a nice story out of it.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. I will send you the link after the podcast is released.